The next metaphor aims to address, in a very different context, the nature of experience in complex services. In The Making of The Godfather, the interviewer asks Francis Ford Coppola, "What is your role in these three films? What do you do exactly?" And Coppola's answer is fascinating. "I own the emotions of the Corleone family." Coppola is Italian, and then in The Making of, you see a large Italian family. Because he has a clear emotional frame of reference, he can look at any scene and assess its realism. And you see a cut where probably saying Michael would never react like that in this situation. You see the interaction with Al Pacino. A good process owner, a good business owner, CEO in fact, should be chief emotion owner. Know how your customers, your specific market segment, would react in a given situation. That's a very powerful tool to unite the various players in the production, the creation of a situation where the customer can live the experience we'd like him to live to produce the result that we promised him. On that same feature lies another powerful lesson. The Godfather Part 2 was a success in every way, artistically, box office, but it seems that a few weeks before initial launch, they had previews with limited audience, and it failed. I was doing treadmill training when I was watching this, and I sort of almost fell off my treadmill. How could they, in the short period of a month, 6 weeks, change a failure to a success? Did they get Robert De Niro to come back and reshoot the scenes? That's hardly likely. What could they do? So, Coppola explains. The problem was the following. They didn't get it. The film, if you recall, goes through various time periods. From Sicily, where young Vito Andolini is coming to the U.S., to current days, the old Godfather, to middle age, where Robert De Niro plays the role of the 35-year-old Godfather. And there's back and forth between these periods. And as it turned out, they had focus group and tried to find out what was happening. They didn't get it because there were too many flashbacks. That's one variable in a movie experience that involves thousands. They isolated this variable as the one critical to process, as we will call it later, critical to process variable, and they found the right setting for it. Instead of 7, 8, or 9 flashbacks, they sewed it together, and they came back with 4 or 5 flashbacks. And that was enough to turn a failure to a success. This is not creativity. This is rigor. Creativity without rigor does not create value. Creativity without the enabling role that rigor plays could not have created value in this situation, nor does it do so in any complex service situation. This is on the many axes of yin-yang in complex services, this may be the most fundamental one and the most difficult for managers to get just right. Also bear in mind that in complex services, if the client has an experience, so does the service provider. The service provider has many such experiences. He repeats much more often, of course, than the customer. And his experience has to be memorable in a positive way as well, in order to continuously seek better ways to get this success that brings him their personal reward that brought him to the services. Creating value for our experts does not only involve paying more money. It doesn't work. In the last metaphor, I would like to take it from the perspective of the client. We are all clients of complex services, and as such have considerable impact on the quality of the result and substantial responsibility as well. And I will use a personal example to that effect. The episode started with mild irritation in the mouth, leading me to go see a dentist. It went through 4 types of specialties, many subspecialties. At specialist 3, I had carcinoma in situ, cancer stage 0 or precancer, depending on how you want to call it. At specialist number 6, I've had surgery in the mouth. At the end of the affair, specialist number 9, the best of the best. I never had carcinoma in situ, but a mild case of fungi that a mouthwash for a month cured completely, forever. Throughout this roller coaster of emotion, costs, stress, waste of time, impacts on family and friends, I've been able to draw a number of lessons. These yin-yang dimensions should ring a bell. In this episode, I have seen 9 professionals, 9 distinct professionals from 4 different specialties. I have seen incompetence. In complex services, incompetent professionals can survive. Because of the gap of knowledge, the customer is not always in a position to immediately assess the quality of the service that he's getting. Now, if you're going to get a hamburger, you know pretty much that there is too much mustard. You feel quite competent to decide that the hamburger is not good and to go to the other banner across the street. Not so in complex services, where the power can be used and abused by the provider. I've seen insouciance. I got 5 minutes. I'll give you my best in 5 minutes. When my mind is made up, it is made up. And if I don't feel I can explain to you, then I will not bother to do so and move on to my next case. I have seen dishonesty as well. Dishonesty is using the power of knowledge to serve your own interest. In the case of the surgery, I am personally convinced that the doctor there knew that there was no CIS at the moment of the surgery, but proceeded because it was all set up. His resident was set up for surgery, and he didn't want to disappoint her. He used his power with respect for the resident, but not for me, who should be the primary object of respect. Our experts often have more data than judgment. As customers, we have a duty and responsibility to use our judgment. Responsibility means that you accept the personal consequences of not fulfilling your part of the job, and they can be dire, especially when it comes to health service. Second lesson, depending on the way you behave, on your part of the co-production, you may get value added, non-value added, value destroyed. In the preceding episode, which is typical of situations that occur thousands of times around the country, value was destroyed a couple of times by these 9 providers. Respect at the moment of truth involves leadership. Complacency and arrogance are abuse of power. Complacency, on the one hand, is giving the customer what he asks for. In simple services, the customer knows what he needs. If he asks for it, you give it to him. In complex services, very often, if not most of the time, he doesn't. He's got a need. He needs an expert now to interpret that need. If he asks for something, most of the time, it is not what he needs. Complacency is giving it to him anyway. Arrogance, on the other hand, is, I'm the expert, I'll tell you what's good for you. Not much better. Leadership in complex services is making the customer understand, creating the conditions whereby the client will understand what's good for him, and showing the way about how to get there. This is the most challenging part. This, of course, has commercial implication. Dishonesty is very tempting, as if a customer asks you for something that's very lucrative for you, it may be very tempting to just give it to him and move on to the next customer. Throughout these 9 examples, we've seen a number of dimensions of complex services, which I referred earlier to as the yin and the yang of services. Complacency, leadership, and arrogance. Incompetence, insouciance, and dishonesty. Rigor and creativity, and the right dosage between one and the other. Individual learning, organizational learning, and the interprofessional connection that's required for the latter to happen. Autonomy and control, and the need to deconstruct services and refocus each individual unit in order to be able to have the correct balance between one and the other and use the right measurements. Discipline, judgment, and creativity. The cockpit example made that clear. Managers in these complex services have a complex job to do. And one of the dimensions that I just brought up applies very well to the management of complex services. It is easy because of the prima donna side of professionals and their power in your organization as manager to be complacent. They're powerful, they know their stuff, let them do whatever they say is good. The opposite, of course, is being arrogant. I know what's good for you, and no matter how professional you are, I'll tell you. Of course, professionals have the power to resist such an approach. In any service, great customer experience will never be achieved in an authoritarian context, even more so in complex services. What we need is leadership to set up coordination mechanisms that will allow them to learn collectively and thus create the only sustainable source of competitive advantage, the ability to learn together faster than competition. Thank you.